I want to introduce you to my latest car, the F355 gated 6-speed. This is a 1995 that I bought for making money with the markets going up on manual cars. And I felt really excited about this car for a couple of reasons until I realized it's an F355 and that I'm gonna lose 35 grand just bringing it up to par. The F355 is a pretty good collector-based car. It's the car they say is the next best thing after an F40 and the best opportunity to really drive what they consider to be classic Ferrari at a point where it was actually drivable. So I'm not a Ferrari fan, and I'm a big believer that Ferrari is one of the worst companies on the planet. I own a Pista and I own an A12 GTS, and I've owned probably like 50 other Ferraris. I absolutely hate the brand. I think they're hypocrites. I think their dealers are terrible. I think the craftsmanship and the quality of their product is dog shit across the board. Old Ferrari, Pininfarina design Ferrari, was actually really good Ferrari until like the F12 and the 458. And my idea of the best Ferrari of all time and the final Ferrari that ever made anything exciting or relevant, 488 Pista. So I love the GTS, but I don't think it's a good product for the money. I think, however, the 488 Pista is one of the best for the money. Now, going back to classic Ferrari, you guys know I own a 575M we unveiled on the channel, and this is a car that I bought actually a few months ago. And part of the reason why you haven't seen it on the channel as much is because this exact car has been in the shop ever since it got here, because I bought it on my favorite site ever, Bring a Trailer, the biggest scam site in the world, again, which not only have they previously had scam artists that literally defraud people selling on there. You guys remember the Andrew Papas video, and they continue to support him selling cars on there, even though he's not giving titles and all that crap. So you guys saw that video before, but now they've gone to the next level again with letting people basically put whatever they want in their description. So let me tell you what happened with this car specifically. So I bought this car on the basis that it was like a bid war at the end of that, and this was worth somewhere around like maybe 130, 125, 130. It's a 1995, it's a driven car with 30,000 miles, it has a gated 6-speed in it, so it is worth something and people are buying these cars. But historically, being the 1995, the better car that people want to own, and the fact that it has a gated and it's an original gated, of course it's not a converted car. But one of the things that happened is through this listing, I saw that the car had a 2B exhaust, also had spacers, and it was kind of a driver's car. And it showed that it had an engine out service. It was actually what would be considered a pretty good condition F355 compared to what else in the market. Now, since I like to drive my cars, I know people don't believe that because they see them in this garage all the time, but I take them out all over South Florida all the time. I wanted a car that I could put some miles on because I have enough like collector cars that can't move. You guys saw that I have a 300-mile LP640. So when I bought this car originally, I said I'm pretty excited because I can probably make a couple of updates to this, modernize it, put some wheels on it, you know, do the full exhaust, etc. And the baseline for what is considered to be a driver's car F355 is pretty much done. So contrary to my surprise though, after buying the car, I realized that unfortunately the listing was somewhat misleading, and what ended up occurring is the car had a much more damaged than expected paint job, a much more damaged than expected interior, and mechanically was in really bad shape. Like it had shocks that were blown out that needed to be replaced, even though that was never mentioned. It had 2 leaks, even though it was previously stated that these leaks were actually fixed as part of an engine out service. So it had this service, which was done incorrectly, and it had all these service records. So when I bought the car and got this car, I thought, hey, I'm gonna overpay a little bit on the bid because I'm getting a perfect car, but ultimately ended up not getting a car. So I was in it now all repaired well into the 170K range, which I thought was kind of problematic now because I'm negative basically 20 grand right at the beginning and probably an extra 10 by the time I'm done and it's up to par with the way it needs to be. So I'm betting that the market will go over 200 very, very soon on this car, putting me back in a positive position, which is why I okayed spending more money on it to bring it up to par. So let's talk about the 1995 specifically and why or what was done to this car. So there was a paint correction done to the car, and obviously the original grainy Ferrari paint is on here, and that's very normal, but the car came out pretty okay after the paint correction. We had to redo this entire interior because just about everything was damaged inside. So the radio didn't work, the buttons in the middle were all sticky, and the carpet was in awful condition. So the leather was in really bad condition on the seats, but the actual carpeting and everything was stained, very, very damaged, and was all tan. In addition to that, all of this upper deck here was starting to get loose, and even that dash panel right there where the instrument cluster is was starting to warp and come apart. So, you know, we took this entire interior apart, redid the radio, redid these door panels with a mix of Alcantara and kept the original leather where it wasn't damaged, and then replaced the entire carpeting, floor mats, and everything else with all black version instead of tan, giving the car a black and tan contrast instead. And in my opinion, it came out superbly better and just much cleaner and much more revised. And while people would complain about Alcantara because it wasn't a thing in that era, I think it really revitalized the car much better. And since the car is not a collector car with 1,000 miles, it's a driver's car, I figured, what would a driver want out of a car like that? They would want a really clean and exciting dashboard. And so, you know, we fixed the instrument cluster, we fixed all of the top of the shelf here, we redid the doors, we redid the sticky buttons, we redid the panels, and we cleaned up all the leather and really detailed the crap out of it to get it to a point where it's a mixture of vintage and a mixture of modernizing, or restomodding, you would say, the interior. We added a Bluetooth radio to make sure you can listen to music that you actually want and not from cassettes from the 60s, so that wouldn't make sense. We changed the shocks to a coilover set so that now we don't have busted shocks anymore, and fixed most of our leaks. So we're in this car now roughly a total of about 20 grand worth of interior, exterior, and repair. And we've done a couple of kind of aesthetic upgrades to it. We replaced these with the more modernized version of the tails, and I think it looks pretty good now. It's got a much more modern look. We also fixed the front and redid all the headlight system to also be modern. So like modern fog lights, model headlights, and I'm gonna show you why it needs potentially more work again. So I'm gonna turn on the car so you can see how nice the taillights look. Look at how nice the taillights look. They look fantastic. So you see how nice they look. These are the more modernized Pista 488 looking taillights. And then come to the front of the car and check this out. This is why it's gonna cost us an extra 10 grand, because while they were updating these fog lights, you see to this new style also, much more LED, this piece of shit is now winking because the motor in this light technically went out, and while it took the motor out, it seems that this bulb went out at the exact same time. So it created this completely one-sided wink, like I'm trying to pick up chicks at a cafe, and it's not working because I'm not that good looking. So clearly, nor is this car with this like horrendous situation. But nonetheless, you can hear, even with the tubey exhaust, it sounds pretty good and it looks pretty good, you know? So once we do that, you have a much, much prettier design, and again, much better when things actually work. So we're gonna have to refix this motor right here to get this headlight working. We're gonna have to get these bulbs all fixed up, and we still have an additional engine out service to do to get the car clearly where it needs to be. Cars that are often neglected, like the Gallardo 6-speed 0408 and these F355s, are typically the next generation of sub 200K gated cars that you can buy, and are they good cars or not? I had a 550 gated before, I really didn't like it. I've driven the 575 gated, also liked it a little bit better, just still don't love it. And at the end of the day, it came back to this idea that what else can you buy for 200 grand? So you could buy cars like the NSX, the 355, and the Gallardo gated. I would argue that from a driving fun experience, this was a better driving fun experience than a Gallardo gated. But let's face it, the Gallardo gated's faster, the Gallardo gated is more reliable, and the Gallardo gated is just going to be not as pretty of a car, but a much better buy, in my opinion, from the sense of enjoying a car. Now, if you're like me and you already have 30 cars and you're going to be in a position to pick a car that's like classic Ferrari that you want to put in a collection for value increases, I think this has much more upside value than a Gallardo does. And the drive is actually pretty cool. It's a lot faster than I expected it to be, and it runs through revs really nice. It doesn't feel like it's gonna break. And I think partially it's because this car's lowered, has exhaust, and feels a little less restrictive, and runs through the gears well, but it drives actually pretty decent. I expect these cars to be somewhere in the $250,000 range in the next 2 years, so like 250, 275 range for cars with 20 to 30,000 miles, and then very heavy collector cars with very low miles above that. But that's my opinion of where the market's going, what's going on. So would love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Do you agree? Do you think these cars are not going to go up? Do you think they're stuck where they are? Would love to know your experience about the F355 as well into the comments. Otherwise, make sure you like, subscribe, turn on notifications, and you'll be seeing a lot more content once we get that headlight to work from the F355. I'll catch you next time for Exotic Car Hacks.